finances are just as formidable. That image is personified by George Washington. The first president oversaw a sprawling estate at Mount Vernon, part of a land empire worth hundreds of millions in today's dollars. But then there is Ulysses S. Grant. Despite being a celebrated war hero and two-term president, a Wall Street scam stripped him of his life savings. He ended his life with exactly $80 to his name. This chart shows the historical baseline of the presidential salary, ranging from $25,000 to $400,000, compared to the hundreds of millions required for dynastic wealth. The paycheck is rarely the source of the fortune. Relying strictly on that government income actually pushed several leaders to the edge of bankruptcy while they were still in office. To find the real source of presidential fortunes, we have to look outside the White House and track the shifting economic engines of American capitalism itself. The first economic era belonged to the Founding Fathers. These leaders commanded massive nine-figure fortunes that were tied deeply to the land and labor systems of the Old South. In this period, wealth was quantified by acreage and forced labor. George Washington's portfolio is the clearest example. He conducted an aggressive buying spree that secured over 52,000 acres across 5 different states. However, this era contained a specific financial trap, being land-rich but cash-poor. Thomas Jefferson's physical assets at Monticello suggest immense wealth, but the reality was more complicated. Jefferson maintained an expensive lifestyle, importing European furniture, rare books, and fine wines. Because his wealth was tied up in illiquid land, he couldn't generate the cash to cover these costs, leading to a mountain of unmanageable debt. James Monroe faced the same struggle. He operated a sprawling Virginia plantation, but died nearly broke, having spent decades in public service while his private finances withered. This agrarian wealth was often a precarious illusion. These presidents lived on vast estates, but frequently died destitute, forcing their families to sell off land and enslaved people just to settle their accounts. As the economy industrialized, a new archetype emerged, the career public servant. Presidents like Abraham Lincoln and Woodrow Wilson came from modest backgrounds and relied almost entirely on their official salaries. Harry Truman is the extreme example of this vulnerability. After leaving the White House, he claimed to be so short on cash that Congress felt compelled to invent the presidential pension. For those who didn't struggle on a civil servant salary, the only alternative was inheriting or marrying into an established industrial fortune. The Roosevelts secured their status through generations of calculated planning. They built their wealth by strategically intermarrying with other powerful New York families, ensuring financial security long before they entered politics. The Kennedys followed a similar path, combining banking, real estate, and oil money. By the time John F. Kennedy reached the White House, his family's wealth was estimated at $1 billion in today's money. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, the presidency itself was not a wealth-generating office. It was a position generally reserved for those whose families had already won the capitalist game. Starting with Gerald Ford, the financial life cycle of the presidency entered a new phase. Ford was among the first to realize that the most significant income begins the day you leave the Oval Office. In his first year as a private citizen, he earned over $1 million through corporate board seats and speaking fees. This post-presidential model became highly efficient under the Clintons. They left office with significant legal debt, but converted the global speaking circuit into a revenue stream worth over $100 million. The most recent shift involves the direct monetization of intellectual property. The Obamas moved into this space by securing massive book advances and a $50 million production deal with Netflix. The modern presidency now functions as a global megaphone, allowing former leaders to transform their public service into highly profitable media brands. In the present day, we see the complete fusion of private enterprise and the highest office in the land. Donald Trump is the clearest example of this trend. He entered the office with a pre-existing real estate and licensing empire, using the presidency to maintain a billionaire status built on his personal brand. A president's net worth is a mirror reflecting the dominant economic engine of their era. We have seen leaders move from commanding agrarian land monopolies to relying on inherited industrial fortunes, to finally securing modern media and content empires. The Oval Office is rarely the origin of wealth. Instead, it is either a prize bought by a pre-existing fortune or the ultimate brand asset, ready to be monetized the moment a leader walks out the door.